Welcome. We are Hellcat Productions, and we are introducing the pilot episode of Hellcat Hangar Sea Stories. This is a series of short videos that cover a wide range of topics focusing on aviation and maritime related stories.
We are offering this platform to advertisers and sponsors to showcase their businesses and products in an entertaining and informative format. Each episode will contain personal reflections and experiences as well as promotional content created for the sponsors and advertisers for that episode.
I graduated from Georgia Southern in 1978 and went to Atlanta to work for Delta Airlines as a, of all things, computer programmer. I decided to go see a recruiter, and I walked into the Air Force recruiter first. I had a degree from Georgia Southern in accounting, and he kind of almost laughed me out of his office. He's like, yeah, you're not Air Force material. Like, oh, all right. I went across the hall, and there was a Navy recruiter. And so I walked in, and I think this is probably a common experience for a lot of people because I've heard this story several times from other folks. I walked in, the guy said, "Hey, come on in, how's it going? What do you want to do? Fly F-14s? No problem. Just fill out this paperwork, sign here, do this, do that. And we'll get you going." So I did, took their test, called me back, and next thing I knew, I was pretty much face down in the dirt in Pensacola. I started AOCS class 1379 in June of '79. Got my commission in October and went to flight school.
I'm Ben Vanderlyke. I started out at Kings Point back in 2008. And while I was at Kings Point, I did my cadetshipping on a car carrier to start out. And then after the car carrier, I sailed on a tanker, got my tankerman PIC, and then from there I went and as a cadet again sailed on a pre-positioning ship. I actually graduated from Maine 2016, so it took me 8 years to get through a 4-year degree, but I finally graduated with my third mate's license. And then in 2017 is when I began my career as an officer.
So I went to Corpus Christi, flew T-28. Great airplane, massive thing. I had never flown before, so it was quite an experience for me. I got selected for jets and went to Meridian, VT-19 and VT-7. Following winging, I wound up in VR-24 in Sigonella, flying Saberliners for a couple of years. Back then, the big, really the only conflict really going on was in Beirut. So we spent a lot of time flying around the Mediterranean doing logistics support. After that, back to the training command, instructing in T2s and T-34s, both at Whiting and at NAS Pensacola. After about 12 years on active duty, I was hired by American Airlines in '91. Started off as a plumber on a 727. Actually did that for 5 years as I was concurrently instructing as a reserve instructor at VT-10. So I stayed sitting sideways for about 5 years. Finally upgraded on the 7.2, and then went to the MD-11, to the 777, to the 7675, back to the 777, then to the Airbus, and then finally retired on the 767.
I started out again sailing on a car carrier, and I spent 3 hitches, 4 to 5 month long hitches on there. Circumnavigated the globe twice, went through the Suez Canal, Panama Canal, across the equator. Did a lot of pretty interesting stuff that not many people, even in the career, get to do, which were some pretty fun check off the list as far as nautical rites of passages go. And then after the car carrier, I switched to a radar ship that would go out off the west coast and basically would be the camera operators for testing the missiles. The radars would track and make sure that everything is doing what it's supposed to be doing. And after the radar ship, I did a small activation on an old tanker, and that was just about a 60-day activation. And then after I got off of there, I had the opportunity to bounce up and sail as a second mate, and then I got on a Conroe that just went back and forth between Jacksonville and Puerto Rico.
So as I was approaching retirement, I knew I wanted something to try to transition to. I had gotten involved in some video production stuff, and I kind of liked it, and I thought that there was a huge opportunity to get some pretty cool stories from people, Navy people, military people, aviators, and so forth. And so I wanted to do that. I got my son involved. He was already interested in. We got together and put this thing together, the Hellcat Productions. It's been, at this point, about 3 years, and we've had opportunities that we would have never expected when we started out, and things just seem to be getting better and better for us. So I hope you enjoy what we're doing. Kind of the last activity that we did as students before we got our wings, we went out to the boat to get carrier qualified. So we were in Key West, and the carrier that we were going to use was the USS Independence, the Indy. And so it turned out to be a bit longer of a day than we were anticipating. They had some issues on board the carrier the day previous, and so we go out to the whole short. It's July, it's hot, so we're all sitting out there. We had to wait a couple hours for what's called a Charlie time, which is your overhead time at the ship. Finally, we got our Charlie time. Got to our Charlie time. We launched as a flight of 4. The lead pilot was a instructor pilot, and then there was 3 students on the wing, and I was the dash 4. I'm just looking at dash 3 because that's what you do when you're flying formation. You don't really know what else is going on. But the instructor's responsible for getting us out to the boat. Some point during the on the ride out there, as we were approaching the ship, the instructor needed to make a course correction. Well, he had everybody in what's called right echelon, so all the planes were on the right side. Typically, one of the rules of formation is you don't turn into an echelon, but that's exactly what happened. He made a course correction into the echelon. Of course, the dash 2 guy didn't have any trouble. He just stayed in position. The Dash 3 guy, he just kind of pulled right into me. It all happened so fast. I just dumped the nose and just tried to avoid the midair that seemed like it was coming. We straightened out, got all joined up, and proceeded to the boat.
Throughout this season, we will be highlighting Daniela Paint's beautiful mural she created for the Hellcat Hangar.
Back when I was a brand new third mate, on a car carrier that tramped around the world. And so we happened to be anchored off of Zeebrugge, which has a pretty significant current on the outside. But while we were there waiting, it was a nice, beautiful, calm day, and every quarter we're supposed to lower our lifeboats to the water as per regulations. And so we had decided that this was going to be the time that we were going to head and getting this accomplished. On a car carrier, at least the one that I was on, they have a free-falling lifeboat where it basically launches out from the stern of the ship, and it just has like a 90-foot drop. And so when we're lowering it to the water, there's a bridle. It's a lengthy process. But we deploy our fast rescue boat, and it's supposed to make sure that you're not dragging the lifeboat all the way down. And so I was on the fast rescue boat. The third assistant engineer and the OS were also on there with me. And so we get on there and we're lowered to the water, and get the engine going and release the hook. And so as soon as I release the hook, it quickly becomes out of our reach, and the fuel line for the fast rescue boat blew. And the third assistant engineer is trying to piece together a way to get the fuel to the engine, which was no longer happening, and so it immediately died. And he's fumbling around trying to figure that out. We're drifting farther and farther away. As we're troubleshooting, we're radioing the people on the ship, going back and forth, trying to give them an update of what's happening on our end. They're scrambling around on their end, trying to retrieve us back. And we drifted farther and farther away, out to sea on a little fast rescue boat. I think the person on watch was tracking where we were on the radar, and we got to 1.5 miles away, maybe even farther. But they had lost contact with us on the radar because we're not a good radar target. And so they had tried shooting a line to have us be able to pull back. We were rowing, but the current was stronger than we were capable of rowing. and came pretty close to having the Belgian Coast Guard come and rescue us. But somehow they managed to get the lifeboat down into the water, and so the chief mate at the time, actually, it was a very small lifeboat, and he was a very tall Wisconsin guy, and his head was poked out of the top, and he's coming up in the lifeboat, which is a very unique looking boat in general, to come and rescue us, and towed us back and got back to the ship.
Well, in the age before helicopters in naval aviation, which today perform the search and rescue mission when pilots are shot down or have to make an ejection because of an emergency. During World War II, when they were making air attacks against islands in the Pacific, the Navy used to position submarines in the vicinity of those islands. So if pilots and air crewmen were shot down, those submarines would be in position to go pick them up and pull them from the water out of their life rafts. Well, on September 2nd, 1944, the U.S. Navy carrier force was launching a series of strikes against an island called Chichijima. One of those submarines in the vicinity of Chichijima was the USS Finback, and it was a busy day for that particular submarine. And an officer on board decided to keep a souvenir of all they had done that day. And so the first pilot they rescued, he took a section of that individual's life raft, and he had everybody they rescued that day sign it, put their thumbprint on it, and say what squadron and carrier they were from. And little did he know that the second name that would be placed on this life raft would belong to a future president of the United States. So what this life raft has on it is the signature of Lieutenant Junior Grade George H.W. Bush, who was a torpedo pilot flying TBM Avengers off the USS San Jacinto in Torpedo Squadron 51. And so he was one of the individuals that USS Finback rescued that day. And he actually stayed aboard the submarine until she was able to get back into port and he could be returned to the carrier and to his squadron. So he lived life as a submariner for a period of time after enduring a very harrowing experience of being hit by anti-aircraft fire and having to bail out and float around in the vicinity of enemy-held territory. And it was certainly a defining point of his life. And for the museum, receiving this section of life raft was certainly a signature moment for our artifact collection, because there's nothing like it that exists anywhere in the world.
Pensacola is home to many great attractions. From Fort Pickens, part of the Gulf Islands National Seashore, we watch a ship as it transits the Pensacola Pass on its way to the Port of Pensacola.
There would be no Pensacola as we certainly know it today, and through history, without the great depth and quality of our pass and of our bays. Their depth and their access, allowing access to ships of the line for the last 400 years, has been the reason we are here. There is not a colonial past in Panama City. There's not a colonial past in Fort Walton or Niceville. We have a corner on that market, and it's only because of the port. In a way, we got a jump start in the settlement of Pensacola Bay by European Americans because of the port. The port is part of a huge part of our history for no other reason. It is the linchpin, the keystone of who we are and how we have organized our town, our settlement, and it reflects our sort of maritime view of the world. Commerce railroads, all of that centers on the bay. If you took that away and put us in the interior, we would be like any other city. But the additional advantage of having the beautiful beaches and bridges and transportation, meaning cars and automobiles, to get the general public to enjoy these incredible beaches, especially since World War II, it really is our lifeblood. It started with the port, it continues through the port, but other interests have springboarded off of it, like the beach, like fishing, like even commercial fishing with the snappers fishing of the early 20th century. It has led us to today. So it is unique along the Gulf Coast. It's certainly unique in Florida. Outside of Tampa Bay, ships just couldn't get in. And it's a lot of expense and trouble to keep those smaller bays open. But Pensacola's has been and is, and the port is an important part of our history and probably in our future going forward.
Another popular attraction is the lighthouse on NAS Pensacola. The unique location adjacent to the pass allows visitors to get an expansive view of the surrounding area, including some of the best views of the Blue Angels.
Here's a look at the Hellcat Hangar, a multi-use facility that serves as a production studio, as well as a party and meeting venue. Stop by anytime and take a selfie with our own mural.
Almost all of our drone work comes from our favorite operator, who we call the King of Drones. His work speaks for itself.
We'd like to finish this episode with our highlighted artist. Laura's work speaks for itself and is a great friend of Hellcat Productions. Follow her for some amazing shots and check out her book.